I'll ask everyone at this time to please take a seat. We're about to begin the services for Mrs. Diana Eingorn. And just a gentle reminder, if you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. I would also like to announce that the interment will be at West Lawn Cemetery following the service. If you are going in procession, we'll make sure that your car is marked with an orange funeral sticker as well as a magnetic flag for the top of your vehicle. And the Shiva will be observed at Mrs. Eingorn's residence in Skokie, 8432 Kimball Avenue, following the interment today until 8 p.m., Saturday evening after Shabbat, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Now, all this information is listed in the service folder, and for those of you that are viewing the service online, that information is also on our website. The following people will be serving as pallbearers at the conclusion of the service: David Eingorn, Ben Eingorn, Becky Eingorn, and Howard Spiro. The services this morning will be conducted by Rabbi Deborah Newman-Kamen from Am Yisrael Congregation.
We turn to the words of our tradition, Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, benodesha yarbatzeni, al mei menuchot yanachaleni, nafshi yeshovev yanchen b'maglet tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki alech b'geit salmavet, lo irara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha chema yanachamuni, ta'aroch livnei shulchan neged surai, deshantim b'shemen roshi kosi revaya, Aktov v'chesed yardafuni kol yamei chayai, v'shafti b'veit Adonai la'orach yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, guides me on paths of righteousness, and revives my soul for the sake of glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will abide in the house of God forever. Adonai ma'on hayita lanu v'dor v'dor, v'terem herum yiladu, v'techolel eretz v'tevel, u'me'elam ad olam ata'el. O God, you have been our refuge from generation to generation. Before the mountains were born, before the earth was fashioned, from eternity to eternity, you are everlastingly God. Yet, humans, you crumble to dust. You say, return, O mortals. 1,000 years are in your sight as a passing day, an hour of night. 70 our years may number. 80 years have granted the vigor. Life quickly passes and flies away. Teach us, therefore, to number our days, that we may attain a heart of wisdom. Match days of sorrow with days of joy, equal to the years we have suffered. Then your servants will see your power, and your children will know your glory. This morning we've come in loving tribute to the memory of Diana Eingorn, Dina Bat Fischel Vafranca, wife of the late Leonard, mother of David and Lisa, grandmother of Becky and Ben. We remember her beloved brother Jack and her nieces Julie and Carrie. This morning, in loving tribute, we have her family members, her grandchildren, and her son, who will be speaking words of tribute.
Okay. Hello, and thank you all for coming. My Grammy's favorite thing to say to me was, "Be careful, Googie," and it was good advice. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandma. Oh gosh. My brother and I would go to her house every Friday after school, and on Sundays the whole family would squeeze into her tiny kitchen for dinner. My grandma was a third grade teacher for 38 years, and when I was little I wanted to be a third grade teacher just like her. I used to take all of her teaching stuff and teach all my stuffed animals who happened to be great students. In the last couple of years, Grammy became my first exercise client. I spent a lot of time with her doing her physical therapy exercises. Looking back, being able to share my passion for exercise with her brought us closer than I ever could have expected. As many of you may know, my father has a very loud and contagious laugh, and he got that from her. Um, Needless to say, my dad and Grammy had a very strong relationship. Any moment he wasn't at her house, she worried about him. I could always tell when he was on the phone with her because I would hear him laughing, and I could hear her laughing through the phone. She could be very stubborn, but I'm very thankful.
Hello, and thank you to everyone who could be here with us on this melancholy morning. Today is a gloomy day, but our main objective should be to remember the beautiful life that my grandmother lived and to cherish the memories we have shared with her. For those of you who haven't gotten to know my grandmother very well, I'll tell you a little bit about her personality, character, and wisdom. I've learned so much from my grandmother. She taught me what it means to love someone unconditionally. As a young child, she supported me through every phase I went through. When it was soccer, she told me I was the best soccer player. When it was tennis, she told me I was the best tennis player. No matter what, in her eyes, I was always the best. I felt that unwavering support since the day I was born, and it gave me the strength to persevere through hard times. My grandmother was an incredibly strong person. She endured incredible hardships and still found enough love in her heart to bless the lives of so many people. Grammy's wisdom will live on in our hearts. Grammy's wisdom will live on in the hearts of all who knew her. If you knew Grammy, you'll know she did not hesitate to share her opinions. She has shared decades of wisdom with me throughout my life, and many lessons can be learned from her careful outlook on life. In conclusion, I love you, Grammy. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thanks again to everyone for coming out. And next, a few words from my dad.
There really should be a prayer for eulogizers, in that, Mom, forgive me for leaving out anything you may have wanted me to say. If there's any occasion that a person doesn't want to get started, it's this occasion, this final passage. But started, we must start. So my mother held people in her life in the light most favorable, and in the light most favorable meaning she loved them and they loved her. And all those people, they're here now. And besides her grandchildren, who you just met, Ben and Becky, there's my wife Lisa, and there's her in-laws, Ken and Deb Winkler here. Ford loved her. There's Julie, her niece, who flew in from California for this solemn occasion, and her friends. Her friends who were friends for more than 60 years, more family than friends. Jack Fisher, Barb Fisher, who's here, Helen Lindau, who's here, and I mentioned them. I'm going to say some more about them because in the last months of her life, they really supported her by her phone calls, by keeping a connection with her, by keeping in contact, really sustaining her. And the Fishers saw her right before her death. Helen was going to see her 11. She died about 11 o'clock in the evening. On Monday, Helen was going to see her 11 o'clock in the morning the following day. So really tremendous support. And Helen knew how much my mom meant to me, and how I cared for her. And oftentimes when she'd call, I'd be there. Is David there? David, I'd be in the room. There. So they were really. She was really proud of. Of course, Jack was her brother, but also the other Jack, two Jacks in her, Jack Fisher. She'd always call me right after she spoke to you. She'd call me, Jack Fisher called me. And she was very proud of all, the many successes in your businesses. And but also she praised you as an artist. She said he's also a great artist, and for anyone who writes or is an artist, that's a great compliment. That's a really wonderful compliment for anybody. And Helen, she met at the University of Illinois, and they were both students there at the University of Illinois, and where my son attends now. And she would say about Helen that the university really had nothing to teach Helen that she didn't already know. And Helen had amazing praise for her as a business person, a great friend. I wish that my mom could have gotten out and seen Helen, and the last Helen is from Marengo, and gone out there and been with her out there and seen all there is that was there. Of course, her husband, my father, Leonard, she was very devoted to. They were married, also, let's call this about 60 years, and he really took care of her in her declining health. He would drive her to work. She was an elementary school teacher, and you can imagine the Chicago winters, and there wasn't really any parking, so he'd drive there, drop her off, make lunches for her, and do all of that for her. And she supported him too while he was working. His company moved to Alabama, and she was basically alone with me, but she endured it because the job made him happy, and he dreamed big of really succeeding at it, and the company, to compensate him for his sacrifices, our family sacrifices, with he always said a blank check. He was waiting for the blank check, but my mom was always never told him he shouldn't follow his dream, shouldn't do what he loved. He really loved doing. He loved working there. Next, a towering figure in her life was her brother. I mentioned him before, Dr. Jack Friedman. His friends are here, lifelong friends. He was a very important person for my mother. His many achievements, his many abilities. He was her closest confidant. I'm sure she shared with him things she didn't share with me. And when he died almost 2 years ago, it was a terrible loss. Really a terrible loss. But I think if I have to say, most of all, she shone her light on her parents, Felix and Frida. And Frida was the most beautiful woman, and Felix was the most intelligent man. And I tell you that their lives were heroic. And and I'm going to go into some detail, and I'm going to share some stories. So let's say we talking about the war in let's use the year 1940, the year 1940. And at that time, her parents were in their late 20s. So imagine your lives in your late 20s. And my mom in 1940 was 5 years old, and her brother was 3 years old. So, and the war was raging, the war against the Jews. And they survived that war. And I'll just give you a couple stories of what happened. In one instance, there's a photograph somewhere in the house, probably, of the family seated together after the war. And the centerpiece of the photo is a doll. In the center of the photo is a doll. Can everybody picture that in their minds? And that why would a doll be in the center of a photo? Why would that be? And I asked about that, and it turned out that the doll saved their lives, because inside the doll were diamonds, and they were able to exchange the diamonds for whatever they needed inside the doll. And in one instance, they were traveling somewhere, and they were accosted, and the Nazi soldier asked for the doll, and they refused to give it. They refused to give it because their lives were at stake here. And somehow they managed to say, well, why would you take a little girl's doll away? Why would you take this little girl's doll away? And they didn't take the doll away. They took and they survived that moment. So, and then eventually, what happened was they were hidden. They were hidden for a number of years in a cellar, a farm, something of that nature, and they had really nothing. They really had nothing, and what they played with were potatoes. The potatoes were their toys, and that's what they had, and that's what they endured. That's what they endured. The worst kind of hell. War. Anybody who knows war, what war is, the worst kind of hell. And a genocidal war, a war against the Jews, a war against them. My mother, 5 years old, 6 years old. My uncle, 4 years old, 5 years old. The next chapter after that, but that being said, they made a good life for themselves when they came to America in 1950. They were immigrants in 1950. And I brought with me, and at that time they did not speak English. My mother was 15 years old, and my uncle then was like 13 years old, and she was good at languages, he was not. And he was good at everything except that, and my mother helped him with the English, helped him to get through, to learn the language. And in fact, what I have here in my hand is a medal. And in high school, she won a medal for the Good Citizenship Medal from the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. So I don't need a genetic test to know I am not related to maybe somebody here, to someone who fought in the American Revolution, but that's the organization that this is from. It. She came not knowing really a word of English, and then she won this medal. And the medal says, "Our inspiration is from the past. Our duty is in the present. Our hope is in the future." Awarded to Diana Friedman Essay. And I've kept it ever since. People know a lot about me and my family, but they've probably never heard about this. So I wanted to have something even for people who are very familiar with us. So She met Helen at University of Illinois. She didn't finish University of Illinois because they didn't have the money. The family didn't have the money to get through University of Illinois. Thank God we're in a different position today. She finished an education degree at Roosevelt University, and then she was an elementary school teacher, had a career for 38 years as an elementary school teacher. Some of my friends, their parents were elementary school teachers. You know, they know how difficult a career there. She was a member of the Chicago Teachers Union. She's proud to be a member of the Chicago Teachers Union. Her good life included a home in Skokie. I mean, at that time, Skokie was like a newer place. There were open lots, she said, on our street, you know, and that was just a great achievement for her. And she had very happy times at home. She was a real homebody person. She was happy just watching television in the kitchen. She was happy when I got her a VCR. This is dating things too, and I got put a movie in for her in the VCR, and you could probably guess which movie she wanted to see, and they always like to see Fiddler on the Roof. You know, what else really? And other little things made her happy. Her husband Leonard, my father's cooking his turkey, his shake and bake chicken, you know, all these kinds of things people of that generation ate. These were delicacies for her. This was really absolutely the best thing. She loved fashion. You know, even when she was in her bedroom, she used to get Vogue magazine. She looked through the Vogue magazine at home. She loved flowers. She always wanted to have flowers. That was a great gift to bring to her. Excuse me, an orchid, whatever it was. I always brought flowers for her. When I'd shop, I'd always bring her flowers. People described her as a tough cookie. And people are nodding their heads. They knew she was a tough cookie. And my dad would call her a soldier. She was a soldier too, because her uncle was. I have to mention this. Her uncle actually was a soldier. He was a major in the Air Force and was buried with military honors, which I'll never forget. But she was a soldier in the practicality of her life. She carried herself up the steps to the second floor at James Monroe Elementary School. Her little, you know, if you're familiar with those old schools, they have the broad staircases. It's really a journey up those stairs. She struggled going up the concrete steps at the front of her house. I mean, you'll see those for yourself. Those 5 concrete steps were very hard for her. Not even from a long time ago. And she went up those steps. She soldiered up those steps because she had picked up her grandchildren from school. She had to bring them back. She had to get up those steps. So she was a person who knew what she wanted and how to get it. And Tamara, who's here, she cared for my mother for almost 5 years. Tamara's here, she's wearing a scarf, but my mom loves scarves. My wife Lisa's wearing a scarf too. She loves scarves. Tamara did the gardening, beautiful flower gardening for my mother. But my mom was strong-willed. She knew what she wanted, and she knew how to get it. And just a few more remarks, everyone. She knew what she wanted. She knew how she wanted to live her life, and she knew how she wanted to end her life. And even when she was confined in her room, she knew where everything was, and she up to the last day or so, she had her mental faculties. And in saying that, I want to assure everybody here that my mother died in peace. And I know that because I was with her for her last breath. I was with her at the very end, and she died in peace. So for all of you, I'm very happy you're here to celebrate my mother. And let's say, let her memory be a blessing, and let's say amen.
I told the family I wasn't really going to be giving a eulogy because the family member spoke so beautifully, but I do want to just share some observations from what you shared with me. A woman who did not have a normal childhood, who did not have a normal education, I assume, grew up to be a teacher for 38 years, taught children who were basically the same age as she was while she was hidden, a woman who probably didn't have normal childhood friendships for those years, grew up to be a wonderful and loving friend. A woman who probably as a child thought about what would my life look like if I get out of here, knew exactly the kind of life she wanted to lead, grew up to be a loving wife, a mother, a grandmother. I don't know how much as a child she might have contemplated whether she would have a future, and then got to see the two of you as her future. A woman who saw the worst that people could do, grew up to get a citizenship award about what a good citizen would be like. It's a woman who saw the worst, grew up to be a person who loved to laugh. Really, everything that you shared is so beautiful and so special for everything that she and her family suffered. She lived a life that was an exact answer to the kind of life a person should lead, even a person who suffered. And I think it's really remarkable. And so in her memory, we read a traditional something from the book of Proverbs that we read, something that was written 3,000, I'm going to read it to you, something that was written 3,000 years ago, but I think could so beautifully describe Diana Eingorn. Eshet chayil mi yimsav rachok mipipim nichra, b'tach balev ba'ala v'shal alakzor. A good wife who can find, for her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and nothing shall he lack. She renders him good and not evil all the days of her life. She opens her hands to the needy and extends her hands to the poor. She is robed in strength and dignity and cheerfully faces whatever may come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She tends to the affairs of her household and eats not the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Place before her the fruit of her hands. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. Please rise for the Almalei Rachamim. Almalei Rachamim, shochein b'meromim. Hamitzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina. B'ma'alot kiddushim taharim kazohira rikia mizhirim. Et nishmat Dina bat Fishel v'Franca. Shalcha la'olama. Begaden dehei menuchata ana ba'al harachamim. Hesireher b'seter kenafech la'olamim. Utsor b'tzor chaim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachlata v'tanuch b'shalom u'mishkava. V'nomar amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Dina bat Fishel v'Franca, who has gone to her eternal home. God of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. God is her portion. May she rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Friends, I'm going to ask that the pallbearers please step forwards. Everyone else, I'm going to please ask you to rise again. Thank you. We're going to go directly to the cemetery. Our service is now concluded.